Our title session here is Roaches and Rodents and Flies. I am super excited for this one. I feel like this is a topic that's kind of gone by the wayside that we don't talk a lot about. So our session speakers today are Liz Dukes, Quality Assurance and Safety Manager from Brinker International, Janet Hurley. She is with the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service Department of Entomology, and Kyle Balch with Chester County Health Department. Please welcome our three speakers panelists today, and we will be leaving lots of time for questions. All right.
I'm Howard Romer. I don't know how to stand in front of a podium unless I have to read a skit. But good morning, everyone. As she said, my name is Janet Hurley. I'm with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. I've been in their employ for close to 24 years. I started this job as an individual who was designed to help schools with their integrated pest management program because we have a state law, longest running state law. And let me just tell you, in the school districts, for those of you that maybe actually do inspections in schools, it is everything from soup to nuts, okay? They have everything. As I have progressed in my career, because I do come from public health and landed into this job just by fortune, my bigger concern is the divide. And I'm gonna find my Georgia people who just abandoned the room. But just FYI, y'all know Derek Lasker? Tell him I said hi. Because this is the thing. We have pest control over here. We have regulatory for food officials over here. Do they ever meet in the middle? No. Is there rules that say they're supposed to use certain things? Yes. But I happen to live in a state where the restaurant industry lobbied hard decades ago to say, oh, we don't need to fall under our structural pest control regulations to where you have to have a licensed pesticide applicator. Yup, that scares the bejesus out of me. I like food. So when Kyle asked me to help him with this, because Kyle's been following me around on NEHA, and yes, I have this huge passion for rats. Just say it. Don't ask me why, but it's just a weird thing. But when I first started, people asked me about cockroaches, and I'm like, well, I used to do wastewater. If anybody's ever lifted a manhole cover, how do you not deal with cockroaches, right? But again, they are a great way to transfer all of those nasty diseases listed up in the box. Then you've got flies. What about flies? Flies have spongy mouth parts. So Mr. Fly lands over on a nasty whatever, and everybody always associates a lot of this stuff with chicken. I'm sorry, listeria can come from a lot of other things other than chicken. So again, the fly lands on the nasty stuff and then lands on something that you're preparing, or on a dish, or better yet, on your beer can. Okay? So again, mice and rats. I mean, nothing upsets me more is when I hear that blah, blah, blah has a mouse problem. I'm thinking of a couple of dollar stores. Okay? Because again, and I recently heard where a couple got sick from lepto because they purchased products off the shelf that had never been wiped down. And I'm not a fan of drinking anything out of a can. And that one just sent chills down my spine because, again, leptospirosis is really on the rise. And most people don't realize that mice and rats carry that in their urine and feces. So, again, and then I had to throw in squirrel. FYI, they are just a glorified rat with a cute tail. Okay, they do carry a lot of these diseases. They pick up the same thing, but people will, it's amazing how I watch people, here, squirrel, and I'm like, I bet if it had a skinny tail, you wouldn't be doing that. So here's the other thing. Y'all were talking about how do you go in and you inspect and that cross divide. I mean, people do not realize the cryptic behavior behind cockroaches. I mean, they're not, okay, if you walk into a facility and they are out on the counters, you have my full permission to shut them down. Okay, because cockroaches should not be doing the cha-cha out on anything. Now, granted, I tell a lot of people, we have this thing called the American cockroach. Again, you'll see it surface a lot of times, but when you see those, if the facility hasn't been used a lot, they will crawl up a sewer pipe. A lot of times, though, you'll find them on their back. If they're on their back, they're dead. Good job. Again, if they greet you and ask you for your number, no. But the hardest part is most people do not realize this image shows it. That's the size of a credit card, y'all. A credit card. So if you're out there doing inspections, you can use your ID card or whatever. Hang on to your badge. I mean, you can throw that in the middle. That's the area, and trust me, there are ways to look at that. And the reason I put this, and I had to dig for this image, I was getting really frustrated when I was putting this together. It's like, I know I've got this image somewhere. Reason I want you guys to see this, and I don't know if this works, oh, it does. See those little juts? That's hair on the cockroach's arms. Now, think about this. This cockroach is walking through a sewer. It comes up. It walks across the food handling area, and then they have now spread Listeria, Campylobacter, take your pick, because we all know what lives in a nasty floor drain. They're nasty. So I want you guys to understand that. The other thing, which 20 years in, and we still, you guys are talking about how do you communicate. There's days I want to just get on the news and just have a whole diatribe about this, because we do not realize the amount of allergens cockroaches have. And again, depending on how old the facility is, how long they've been in there, I mean, there are all these other things that go with it. So now you're looking at, oh, they spread disease. Oh, and they can give you asthma or allergen triggers. Great. So the German cockroach, I bring this one up because I want you all to understand this, if you're not familiar. This is that little bitty cockroach, as you can see on the glue boards. It's about the size of your pinky fingernail. I have short fingernails. Okay, but you'll know it by, see these little racing stripes right here? Here's the thing about German roaches. They only come in with humans. They do not live outdoors and wander in. They wander in on personal items. So again, you guys were talking about, oh, well, how do we communicate and stuff? These are things that aren't always covered in HACCP. And this is why I've taken this on as my own personal quest. Because again, I like food. And every time I see a foodborne illness hit the news, I'm like, y'all not making me feel happy. So again, looking at their life cycle, because I want you guys to understand, once you have an egg case, 30 days to develop it. Now, what's creepy about this with other cockroaches is the German cockroach, she carries that egg case until it's ready to drop. She doesn't drop it and hide it like the other cockroaches I'm going to show you. But one of the things, and I think you can see it in this image, there's some ridges on that egg case. FYI, every ridge is a baby. So that's why we say they can have 30 to 40 oothika, okay, fun word. And then that drops 30 days. And then I'm a nymph, and I go through my life stages, and then I'm an adult. Here's the thing, one German roach can go to 100 after that first drop, because you start doing the multiplication. So they don't fly. There, for some of y'all in the South, there's one that looks kind of like it that flies. It's considered an outdoor roach, but guess what? If it comes into the house, it's in. The American cockroach, most public cockroach enemy number one. They're the big ones. If anybody lives in this, okay, Georgia, it's not y'all, but it's really South Carolina. They're palmetto bugs. Really? It's a cockroach. Okay, it's a roach. Now, the thing that I am showing you in this image, do you see that black streaking? Okay, that's their poop streaks. And the reason I put that in there, you may not see the roach, but if you're in there inspecting or talking to somebody and you start seeing a lot of that, that's just telling you, hey, there's some people hanging out in here during the night, and they're having a great time. This is the newest roach. I mean, what I mean by that is, we've been talking about this Turkestan cockroach for a while. It started on the West Coast, and it has done a fine job of moving east. It doesn't need a whole lot, but as you can see, FYI, if you go into an establishment and you see a glue board that looks like that, again, you need to be having conversations about their plumbing. It again is a smaller roach. What they mean by sexually dimorphic, it can create its own babies. Okay, it kind of like a snake or an earthworm. But again, it generally has moved. This is one that we'll find a lot in sewers, water meters, and then some of you all, especially north of here, that black one is the Oriental cockroach. That's another one that's very similar to the Turkestan. They live outdoors, come inside. But again, what filth and bacteria lives in a water box? What lives in a sewer? Because, ladies and gentlemen, those are the great gross places. So things that, because I want to make sure that you understand, I'm not talking total pest control, but there are things that companies, institutions, whatever can do. Caulk and seal. Remember that gap? Well, if you've got a sink or something and there's a gap, they make this wonderful stuff called caulk. All right? They make all this good sealant stuff. Seal it up so that they can't get in. Eliminate, separate water from food. Kind of hard in a kitchen, but you all know this. You have dry food storage. We have wet food storage, and we shouldn't have chemical storage anywhere in between. I have seen some places that have really challenged me on that. And then again, people don't think that they'll go into a walk-in. I've seen mice, rats, and roaches all survive in a walk-in. Deep freeze, not so much, but by God, those refrigerator walk-ins, and people just like, eh. My biggest, I will tell you guys, the one that will drive me bananas the most, oh, we live in the South and we're supposed to have roaches. No, you're not. No, you're not. Bait and dust. So this is, again, something that the pest control professional would do. Sadly, in Texas, some restaurants can do it themselves. But basically, again, we have techniques. There is no reason, ladies and gentlemen, for any facility to fog or spray inside. I am old enough to remember when they used to spray baseboards, and you would take on some sweet and low, and it tasted like the organophosphate. Yum. I'll never forget sitting in a restaurant and telling them to pull it all. And they're like, what do you mean? And I had my City of Louisville stuff on it. And I said, because I don't want anybody to get sick. And then using residual sprays. There are ways. I mean, yes, if you walk into a facility and it's overrun with cockroaches, I will probably tell you to do all of this and then some more. Because again, I want you to knock it down. How do you solve problems using IPM? This is all about behavioral change. And when I tell everybody, and I said, it really didn't dawn on me until a few years ago when I was explaining this to my leadership. And I'm like, we basically got rid of baseboard spraying when I took on the job. And I really forced monitoring, putting out a device like this, or this, or this. And understanding where do you have pests. Because again, spraying baseboards, they've not done anything wrong, they don't need to be harmed. And again, using the bait, the gel baits. Y'all, 25 years ago when the pest control industry saw this, they thought they were looking like a cow in a new barn door. What's this stuff? Now it's very interesting. This is where the industry has shifted to. Then physical changes. If you guys are seeing things, because now the FSMA in full swing, yay. I'm probably one of the few people who are like all excited about FSMA. Yeah, I'm not right in the head. But again, how can y'all reinforce what pest control says? Because pest control may come in and say, yeah, y'all need a new door sweep. Yes, you need to put this in. You need to fix this. You need to fix your floor drains. And they look at the pest control guy going, can't you just spray? Whereas as inspectors, y'all can go in and say, look, this can lead to. The hardest part is making people connect this because they don't. And then treatment recommendations. Pest control should really do more than just come in, walk around, and leave. So the glue board. I put these on here just to scare y'all. Because again, when I get these from my connections, his friend Melissa, they send me these things and they're like, well, what do you think? And straight up, y'all, I look at those glue boards and go, they need a door sweep. Because everything on those glue boards all wandered in. I mean, you talk about a fight. Oh yeah, let me get a door sweep. So monitoring. I showed you the one without the smoky top, but this is what this is. Cockroaches, mice, any other crawling pest can get in there and get caught. Once they're caught, great. The insect fly lights, so underutilized and so misplaced. They don't always know where to place them, and I'm like, this isn't rocket science. This guy, y'all know what that is? Zevo. Zevo and STEM have come out with these cute little fly lights, and because I'm kind of like the state of Missouri, you gotta show me, I experiment with this stuff. I have been duly impressed with the Zevo. And the reason I say that is it will pick up those fungus gnats, it will pick up the random mosquito that has entered your facility because it came in the door, okay, with you. But it gets you a lot of things. This one down here, this Zoecon, sorry, I'm shining somebody else. The Zoecon, that one is actually, that one, and then these Victors, they have a specific pheromone to attract the German cockroach. Okay? So if a facility's having that, I mean, just putting out a regular glue board, and putting one that has a little bit of their scent draws them to it. Okay, and then you know what you can do. And I put the yellow one up there because they use it a lot in greenhouses, but I've seen it in some odd places, like outdoor eating areas. I'm like, that's for a greenhouse. But hey, my friends the rats, Okay, they are the largest order of mammals. There are over 2,000 species worldwide. We don't worry about most of them, okay? But again, mice and rats. And there are just three that we like to talk about. The Norway rat, the roof rat, and the house mouse. So this is where, when I hear things like, oh, XYZ company in their warehouse had an overrun of rats and mice. And then I stop and I think about all the product contamination. Because remember, these are toddlers. They poo and pee constantly. And if they're going to mark, if a male is going to mark his territory, they will let everybody know. And what's really wild, not only of all the diseases that they carry in their feces, in their urine, but there are also pheromones in there to tell rats where to eat, where to sleep, where to drink, whose territory is it, all sorts of stuff. And you're sitting there thinking, going, they can do all that. But the rodents and the human disease. So I really put in my best pictures. My friend Ed Freitag from the city of New Orleans did this for me decades ago. Because we used to have these just skeletal drawings. And I said, since you guys catch everything, this would be your roof rat. This is your Norway rat. This is the one that likes to live in sewers. This one will live in trees. But as Kyle showed me, he found some in a bush. Because they've learned, rodents have learned, I've got to go where the predators aren't. So if I'm up in a tree and I've got a hawk living near me, well, I can become dinner. If I'm in a bush, hawk's not going to find me. So that's really what it is. And this is good old house mouse. But here's the thing. You want to see me go berserk? Murine typhus. In my state, my home state of Texas, my murine typhus numbers are 3 times West Nile virus. 3 times, if not 4. We'll have maybe less than 100 West Nile cases of humans. My murine typhus numbers have been up over 600 the last 2 years. And we're one of the few states that actually test for it. So some of you others, especially in the South, don't test for it and don't know. Do you see wiggly on the view, the little white thing just wiggling away? Okay, that is fly larvae. And it can live anywhere. I can do it again. She all looking at me like, did I really see that? It's that little white spot right over here. And that's a nozzle. A nozzle for a drink machine. Now, I've got flies in my drink machine and I'm wondering why people are getting sick. Because again, how would I think about that? And yes, everyone, I have worked in the food industry. My first job was Burger King. Okay, and that was back when the polyester was in play. So again, you've got larva, pupa, adult. People will see flies and again, oh, it's just this or that. Yeah, but flies equal disease. Because where do they like to hang out? Nasty stuff. Nasty stuff. So again, fly larvae, they don't have legs. They kind of look grub-like, okay? But they're very small. I mean, if you see a huge fly larvae, that generally means it's a big fly. Stable fly, horse fly. But the small ones, and they're what? Less than a centimeter. So again, you think garbage, manure, decaying plants, soil, water, carcasses, anything nasty, slimy water. So you've got your housefly. You really don't actually see their eggs. I mean, I think if I ever saw a fly egg, I'd probably faint. I mean, I've seen it in lab, but not out in the real world. The larvae I have seen, the pupae I have seen. Oh yes, nothing like a fly landing on your dinner, or whatever else it's doing. But again, life cycle, 6 to 10 days. So if you've got a fly problem, it could go from a couple of flies to mayhem. Again, they're legless, they breed outdoors in garbage, doesn't take much, but this little slide over here just tells you how their organs affect their bodies, because they too have to eat and breathe. And then again, the adult housefly likes liquids, but here's the thing, 20-mile flyers. Okay, so yeah, they may be over on the Trinity, but it's not far to get over here to an outdoor cafe and have dinner on you. All right? Again, I won't go into the regurgitating, but it really is nasty. So what can you do? Sanitation, sanitation, sanitation. And we talk about that all the time. But it's not just, oh, I'm going to sanitize. One of the things that it was interesting, because I brought back an old device, because I asked the school district about how are we going to keep the cockroaches from coming up out of the floor drain. They make these cute little devices that the water goes in, and when there's no water, there's a cap. So the little buggies can't crawl back up out of the floor drain. Now, granted, I've seen some food service people beat these up to no end. I don't know what they're doing when they're putting water down the drain, but it is a reasonable option that can be done. And I will tell you all this. You guys didn't talk about breweries, but breweries, especially because how many do we have now at home? All this, let's make our own stuff. I tell them, go put these in your floor drains. Because again, nothing says happiness like beer. So what non-chemical things can do? Nowhere is it really written. I've seen it, people talk about it. How far do you put a dumpster? Well, if I'm a mouse, I'm a fly, or something else, and I can go 20 feet, 30 feet without any problem, why do you think I want that dumpster at least 50 feet from the back door? It gives you some distance. Not a lot, but some. Do I want it on a concrete pad? Oh, heck yeah. Because I really don't want Mr. Raccoon to burrow up underneath, because nothing says happiness like a raccoon in a dumpster. Trust me, you've done that. Door policies. How many of y'all walked into a facility unannounced and seen the back door propped open? Or driving through the drive-through line and you're looking and going, I don't see this, I don't see this. I just want to eat and I'll pray I don't get sick. But the insect fly lights, again, not well utilized. And for the life of me, I don't understand why. Because again, if you're doing stuff, and especially if there is a dock door that they've got to open up for food and stuff, a fly light will catch a lot of the flying insects, including Mr. Mosquito. I should call it Mrs. Mosquito. Okay? And then this. How many of y'all have heard of the Mexican water balloon trick? You put water in a Ziploc bag with a penny and you hang it. No, it's gonna do nothing. However, they do make fly traps, depending on where you're at. The difference is there is a specific fly bait that attracts the flies in, and they don't leave. They make, oh, there she is. They make these little devices. You put the lure in here, and what does this look like? Because I was looking over there next to the water machine, and I'm like, you could sit that right there and nobody would know. They've got a fly device. So again, devices. The other two, if you walk into a facility and there are little bitty flies coming at you, forage or drain, especially the one that looks like a little moth, that means I've got a sewer leak. There is something with organic matter. Granted, if they've got a lot of potted plants and it's all wet and stuff, this is what you can do. But I want you guys to understand that, again, we've got friends. So what is IPM? It's a balance between pests and pesticides. I don't want the place to be fogged, but I really don't want to have a dinner with some cockroaches, some mice, and some other friends, okay? Environmentally sound. In other words, we look to see what is the lowest and then work our way up. Now, granted, there are times I will roll it back and go, oh, you're infested, and now I need to take you all out. But again, it's working with, and this is sometimes where when you're working with your clients and they have a problem, making sure maybe you bring the pest control people out and then everybody has an intervention. What do all pests need? Food, water, harborage. Okay, it doesn't matter, they're just like us, it's just the amount of. Do they need a lot of water? No. Do they need a lot of food? Heck no, a crumb. Harborage. Like I said, cockroaches, very small. Rats, very cryptic. Flies, they're probably not going to live inside, but they're going to live very close outside. Okay, before we break to talk about stuff, this is a security camera. Before I start, can you see how clean this restaurant looks? Do you see it just drop? While I can say that's biological control, that is not the biological control I want. And here's the scary thing. You're doing your inspections. This was caught before midnight. You may not see that cockroach, you might not see that rat, and you may or may not see some evidence, but I can tell you just by looking at that kitchen, that's not a place I want to eat. Sanitary is not in their vocabulary. So one of the things that I am proud to say is, a couple years back, myself and Dr. Claudia Riegel with the City of New Orleans, we wrote a grant to CDC to talk about vectors. And in CDC's mind, it's mosquitoes, it's ticks. We do get some fleas and some flies. And then Claudia and I, because we are both rat fans, we have included the rodent part because I keep telling everybody, where do you think some of this stuff comes from? Because like I said, there's bad things. So if you want to sign up, you can do our QR code, or you can just Google vector outreach. We have a website. And I will stop here. Thank y'all. And then, who's running the show? Gary? Kyle? Gary? Was I sitting things?
Oh my God. Now, Janet, your slides are online as well, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so you have access to her slides for future review. So, are there any comments from our three panelists before we get started? I have a question for Kyle. Kyle, you have an interesting tattoo. You want to tell us about that?
Which one?
Any pest related. So Kyle's very
We have a cockroach. We also have a rat. So the cockroach is eating a Krabby Patty, and then we also have a rat, and it's actually a desperate rat. He's got a gun, cowboy hat.
Yep, obviously very passionate. I was excited when Kyle suggested this session because I don't think we talk enough about it. So with that being said, it's now all of yours to ask our three panelists any questions you may have. Before I do have one question. how can a regulator or an employee protect themselves from, if a place has German cockroaches, how can they protect themselves from bringing that home with them?
Be very limited of where you put your stuff. So again, I mean, not all of us, if they take a bus, it's hard for them to like leave their personal belongings in their purse, I mean in the car. But I tell everybody, do what you can. I mean, you can bring in glue balls. You can find FYI, you can find all of this online. But I mean, that's what I would do. And I've worked with home health people on the same thing of what they should do, where they should sit, what they should not put stuff down on. Because again, if you know that they're going to crawl into something, you want to do your best to prevent it from crawling into your personal stuff. And nothing like a good purse or backpack don't. Outside on concrete.
Right, and that goes for both, I think, the food service employee and.
Yeah, I was just going to add it goes both ways, so limiting your team members or employees what they do bring into the restaurant as well, because pests can come in on employees. So it goes both ways, just as far as, don't bring in a lot of personal belongings, because your employees can bring them in too.
Yeah, it's the same. And in the jurisdiction I used to be in Arizona, we did lodging as well. And it was the same. Just don't lean against anything. Don't bring in anything you don't need to bring in. And don't bring anything you're not ready to leave in the car and let, cook for a day in the sun.
All right, thank you. Okay, now, questions. Artie, Kennedy.
All right, good morning. My name is Kennedy. I'm from the Garland Health Department, local in Texas, for people that are not from Texas. I wanted to ask a question, but first I want to say this is one of my favorite presentations ever. I didn't think I would say that about roaches and rats, but every time you deliver a presentation, I'm always like, wow, this is so interesting, so thank you for that. But my question is about rodent feces. So in our jurisdiction, we have a couple of restaurants where they have what we presume is a rat problem, but we can't quite tell because there's 100 pieces of rat poop, but we can't tell if it's fresh or not. And our current regulation is we can't close an establishment unless we see the rat. So is there any advice you could give about how to determine if there's an active rodent problem without seeing the rodent itself?
Oh heck yeah, they're called trail cams. And I have been using them forever. Matter of fact, at the center that I work at, the researchers will come to me and say, could you put a trail cam in my greenhouse? Because they want to know. And I do, because again, they're not going to come out between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So generally they come out, but if we connect later, I'll help you.
Sounds good.
Wait, I also got an answer.
So, and yeah, just like she said, you're not going to see the live ones unless it's a really big issue, or you're me walking back from dinner last night, but because one just copped out of the bushes at me. But no, in a lot of our restaurants, you're not going to see the live ones. That's once in the last 10 years, I think I've found a live one that was hopping around a bus bin and managed to get a photo of it, but you're not. What you can do and what we do as far as from our policy, we tell them to clean. And if it's not, so if the droppings aren't on food contact surfaces, they're not in, areas, there's not things being chewed open, it's not seen as a widespread infestation or anything that we could be worried about closing them for. Because it's not on certain surfaces, it's, back in an area that may not have been cleaned for a really long time. But you can make them clean it, do a follow-up in a couple days, or we give it some time, and then give them credit for cleaning it. Don't call them liars. Say, yeah, I asked you to clean it. I'm going to say you did. Anything I see next time I come in, that's brand new. You have an infestation, you're closed. Because it encourages them to clean. And helps you, whether helps you know whether or not it's fresh. Because if you live in a dry, arid climate, smearing it probably isn't going to tell you too much.
From an operator's perspective, I would also make sure that, you know, they do have a pest control company and that they're having them come out, you know, either calling them or how they notify the pest vendor, you know, to come out and inspect, because the pest vendor should be able to determine if it's old and if they're coming out regularly, if that, you know, is a new and possible infestation.
So I just want to say that actually was the main question that I had, because our policy is similar. If I don't see it live, I can't close the facility, even if it is very clear to me that they've got an infestation problem. Like I can find dead ones and I can find PCs everywhere, and a lot of times that won't matter because I didn't find them live. So as a follow-up to that, let's say I have been able to prove that it was an infestation. How long does it take to get one taken care of? Whether it be mice or cockroaches.
Cockroaches are easy. I'll start with cockroaches because they make this wonderful device called vacuum. And it comes with a HEPA filter. The best thing, any facility, I don't care, and I tell this to pest control too, get you one of those because you can, especially with the HEPA filter, you can vacuum up those roach droppings. You can vacuum up the mouse droppings. You can vacuum up all of that. If it is a cockroach infestation and they use the right cockroach bait, they should be able to eliminate them within a week. I mean, I remember visiting a school district out in South Carolina, and I was mortified that the main kitchen was sending the cockroaches to all the campuses. Well, the pest control company wasn't aggressively treating it. And there are directions on every box. How much bait do you put out? Well, they'll put like a little dab, and I'm like, that's not enough for a family. You gotta feed the whole family. So most of it's, they're not treating it correctly. As far as bugs and rats go, that can be a little bit different. Mice, no offense to the mouse, but it's stupid. And it will go in a snap trap. It will go into one of these devices because they don't have any fear of anything new. If it is a rat, that can get really rough depending on where it's at, especially if it's like in a strip center. Because company A, B, and D could be doing pest control, but C refuses to do it. So then there's that food source. The hardest part is getting people, I mean, you guys preach sanitation, 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 but people don't put that into their health. They just think, oh, I'm supposed to clean the countertops. And I tell everybody, I'll never forget, decades ago, Dr. Corrigan said, don't ever put your finger like this underneath anything. And I looked at him and I said, I came out of public health. No way. Because where's all the nasty stuff? So again, this is the hardest part, is working with them and working with the pest control contractor. And hopefully they have a pest control contractor.
Yeah, I'd say the same. It can be done pretty quickly, especially if they use like mechanical methods as well. And they do exclude really, really well, and they manage to find all the harbor sites. So if you can find, like, one of my inspectors back there, when we were in a restaurant, he was still in training, and we pulled apart 2 boxes, and there was a couple hundred cockroaches just in between the 2 cardboard boxes above the dishwasher. That's a good chance for a vacuum. Like, we can spray, we can do all kinds of stuff, but if you just suck them all up, then they don't have to ingest poison, you don't have to wait for it to work. You know, you kind of cut out a lot of time on that one, and then let the, pest control operators, pesticides, do their job. But if they've got a good vacuum that's actually got a good filter on it, they can suck all those up without a lot of risk of, putting that stuff in the air. Yeah, we've seen pretty quick turnarounds on infestations, especially mice and cockroaches. I did have a gas station that was infested with rats, and that took a little longer. But then we also have facilities that a year later still have the mice because they haven't done, you know, in the Northeast, a lot of our restaurants are in buildings that didn't start out that way. So they're houses that are 300 years old, and they're up against everything else. They've got, you know, apartments upstairs that may be harboring them, and then they're coming down through every little crack and crevice from 85 different security systems that are drilled through the things with different wiring. Every once in a while they install a new soda dispenser, so now they've got all these pipes and tubes and everything running through the facility. They've got, you know, highways and connectors for all the pests to run through. And so if they're not going to do the hard work of getting all of that stuff engineered out, you're just going to keep getting reinfested and you're not going to be able to get them under control. But when they do what they need to do, and they actually do work really well with their pest operator, take their recommendations, we've seen it done pretty quickly. Like I had a place that cleared themselves of fruit flies between the initial inspection and the follow-up, just by doing what they knew was going to work, and actually, you know, going against what their pest control said because they had given them not great advice that time. Usually they're really, really good. They see this every day. But sometimes they need a little help.
I would just say, you know, once that's taken care of, making sure from the operator's perspective that, you know, we own our four walls. And so to partner with our pest vendor, as well as I believe Ms. Springs will have some sort of facilities team to then go and inspect and figure out how are they getting in, whether, you know, door sweeps, propped open doors, you know, change those behaviors and really own the four walls and make sure that you do not have any entry points at your restaurant.
So I have a question on the prevention side, and I think a lot of us have seen the popularity of facilities installing garage door style walls, openings in our facilities in certain areas. Maybe not that where it's very hot, but when it comes to air curtains, in doorways or these larger openings, I know we're not going to be able to prevent our four-legged pests really from coming in as much, but do you think air curtains are effective against our flying insects?
Yes, when they're installed properly. And the hardest part is a lot of times most air curtains, bless their hearts, are not installed correctly or not used. I mean, my favorite one was, we can't turn the air curtain on because it's going to mess up our hair. But you have a hairnet on. Okay. But again, it's that perception, oh, I don't want that. And what they don't realize is it is forcing everything out. And door sweeps, and I do have a piece of this material up here that I'll be hanging around during break for you guys, but it's called Excluder. You can put this stuff in places and rats can't get in. They don't like the fabric. Holding it up. It's Brillo pads on steroids, because the rats can't eat this because when they get in, it cuts their mouth. And that's one of the few things. And I've used this stuff everywhere around my house because the rats love me. Why do you think I love them? Not.
Good conversation. You haven't said much about birds. I was kind of wondering if you have any opinions on those. We've had that's an issue with that. Just kind of asking.
The biggest problem with birds is, okay, first I'm going to pick on the architects, because sometimes they like to build extra ledges in places that none of us need. Two, it's the devices. They do make some bird spikes, some stuff like that, but it's very, very hard to get any company to install that because it's extremely expensive.
So particularly, we had issues with loading docks, where they'll actually wait trucks in the back. Then walk in. And then the treatment afterwards, it seems to be, like one person said to me, sometimes the best exclusion model or elimination model is a guy with a pellet gun in his scope. But any other thoughts on that?
This is interesting because the Migratory Bird Treaty Act says only 3 species can you legally harm: house sparrow, pigeons, and starlings. And yet I've watched them broaden that out because of grackles. Grackles finally made the list, amen. But again, they know. And it's almost hard to change their behavior. Because you're going to have to change the bird's behavior of not knowing that they can't come here. And that takes a lot of work.
All right, thank you.
Back to fruit flies, when you're in your favorite bar and you just keep seeing them, what are they not doing?
Not cleaning. Not
Like where?
laying floor drains. As Kyle's video showed, they were cleaning the nozzles, right? I mean, I remember back in the day, you took all the nozzles out and stuck it in bleach water. Apparently we don't do that anymore. I mean, it's the cleaning part. People just don't realize where they're supposed to clean. Do they have cracked floor tiles that are getting gunk underneath it? I mean, you'd be surprised how, especially if you're children. I have a friend that brews, so.
I was just gonna say, yeah, cleaning, making sure that those teams are looking high, low, any kind of low puddle of water. It's the environment, like Jana said before, that, food, water, shelter, so making sure at the end of the night that our teams are doing a good end of night cleaning, to make sure that we don't have that environment as pests are introduced.
Yeah, and the nice thing about fruit flies is they're like people. They don't really travel that far away from where they grew up. So like 80% of people live within 100 miles of where they were born. The fruit flies too, they're gonna hang out and congregate around wherever was creating the nice conditions, like where they had a place that they could hang out. So when I see them, like that video that I took in a bar in our jurisdiction with one of my inspectors back there, when he was in training, that facility was extremely clean. They had no issues with the floors, like they had no standing water. It was kind of a mystery when we were walking around trying to figure out why they had fruit flies. So I just kept looking everywhere that, there could potentially be water. So like, this is the floor drains. Those are dry and those are clean because they've been cleaning them to try and get rid of fruit flies. Like they know the methods. What they weren't doing is cleaning the so this place was a bar. It had 11 soda guns, like behind the bar, and all of the little holders were the things that they weren't cleaning. So they were cleaning the nozzles, but then they weren't cleaning the holder. And then what was happening is they clean all the nozzles, put them back on, put it away, and then everything flies up in there. Like when I grabbed that one, a fruit fly flew out into my face while I was looking to see if there was something crawling around in it. And there's 6 or 7 other videos from that same inspection that has some, bigger maggots crawling around inside there. So you can find them, just figure out where they're hanging out. Because I'll use that one example too that I had most recently where they managed to eliminate them very quickly once they just started doing really practical things. They had suspected, because that's where all the fruit flies were at, was their soiled grass. Like that was in, a hamper, and then the company came and picked them up once a week and took them away. They suspected that was the cause because that's where they're hanging out and that's where they usually saw them. Their pest control told them, no, that's not it, because this person probably hadn't seen that yet. If they had really seen that, or they probably thought they were taken away fast enough that the fruit flies didn't have a chance for their life cycle to go all the way through. So we pulled that out, and I looked, because the facility's there every day, like the manager's there, she knew what she was talking about. So I pulled it out and look, there's pupae and spent gristle, like all over the basket, like where they're throwing these wet rats. And we're in the Northeast, it's humid, things aren't going to dry out, so it does stay moist, it stays nice for these things all the time. And then that just kind of hardens. So like, if you're seeing them in a certain area, look down, look in and around areas. At a grocery store, there was a pipe going into the ground, a little bit of a gap between the grout and the pipe. Look, shine the flashlight, maggots crawling around inside there. Sometimes it's not the floor drains. That place it specifically was. There was a couple thousand pupae all along the inside of their floor drains in that grocery store. And it was getting to the point where we would have potentially considered closing that facility because of just the sheer number of flies and how little they could do to control where they're landing and how contaminated the surfaces would be. And at that point, they're getting into the food and getting stuck and dying, and then I'm serving.
All right, so we are right at 10 o'clock. Janet, Liz, Kyle, thank you so much. I have never heard Janet's presentation before, so cool. They will be around during the break if you have additional questions or if you want to come look at Janet's plethora of toys up here. But yes,